The steam from my coffee blurred the world outside the cafe window into a watercolor mess, my mind as scattered as the pedestrians rushing by. Then, like a jolt from the blue, there he was, Marcos, a blast from my past, weaving through the crowd, unmistakable. Jenna? His voice, richer but just as warm, pulled me back to reality. The chance encounter was a spark in my mundane routine, reigniting old college memories. We exchanged numbers, the digits feeling like a secret pact. That evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcos. It was great seeing you today. Let's catch up soon? What harm could there be in texting back? The conversation flowed effortlessly, as if the years hadn't put any distance between us. We talked for hours, the digital clock on my phone marking the passage of time like a silent witness to our rekindled connection. The next week, under the guise of a work lunch, we met. Laughter and stories filled the space between us, erasing the years. It was as if we'd never parted, our connection immediate and intense. I hadn't laughed that freely in years, not since. I pushed the thought away. Lying to Aaron came easier than I expected. A late meeting, I said, avoiding his eyes. Guilt gnawed at me, but the thrill of secrecy was intoxicating. Our secret lunches became our little escape until one day, as we lingered over coffee, Marcos's hand found mine. The touch was electric, a shockwave through my system, culminating in a kiss that sealed our fates. I should have pulled away. Instead, I found myself leaning in, lost in the moment. The walk home was a battle with my conscience. Guilt clashed with exhilaration. What had I done? Yet, the memory of the kiss sent shivers down my spine. I was living a double life, and the thrill was unlike anything I'd experienced. Each secret meeting with Marcos, each lie to Aaron, added layers to my deception. I juggled my dual lives with a skill I didn't know I possessed, each day blurring into the next in a haze of anticipation and dread. This wasn't me. I wasn't this person. Yet, as I looked in the mirror, the woman who stared back was a stranger, caught in the web of her own making, thrilling in the secrecy and danger of an affair. The realization was sobering, but the pull of this new, exhilarating life was too strong to resist. The instant I saw him, my heart skipped. Not Aaron, my husband of 5 years, but Marcos, a blast from my past, standing in line at the coffee shop with that same crooked smile that could unravel me. Jenna? He asked, as if seeing a ghost. Marcos, I exclaimed, the familiarity of his name on my lips feeling like a secret sin. We exchanged numbers, a seemingly innocent act that marked the beginning of my descent. That evening, as Aaron watched TV, I texted Marcos under the guise of scrolling through social media. Great running into you today, I typed, my heart racing with a mix of guilt and excitement. His reply came fast, igniting a conversation that lasted until the early hours. It was thrilling, dangerous, and felt entirely too right. Lunch with Marcos was supposed to be a catch-up between old friends. Instead, it sparked something new, or perhaps rekindled what was never fully extinguished. We laughed, shared stories, and lingered over coffee, the connection undeniable. I lied to Aaron that day, saying I was swamped with work. It was the first lie of many. The affair escalated quickly. Marcos kissed me after one of our secret meetups, and I didn't resist. The guilt was overshadowed by a newfound exhilaration. I was leading a double life, torn between my husband and the man who had reignited something in me that I didn't even realize had been extinguished. Aaron's suspicion grew with each late night and unexplained absence. Where were you really? He'd press, his voice heavy with doubt. I became a master of deflection, accusing him of being paranoid, even as the evidence mounted against me. Marcos gave me a necklace, a tangible symbol of our affair. I hid it in the back of a sock drawer, a poor attempt at keeping my two worlds separate. Aaron found it one day, his face a mix of confusion and hurt. It's just from an old friend, I lied, barely recognizing my own voice. The tension in our home became palpable, arguments more frequent and more heated. I bought a second phone to communicate with Marcos, a move that felt like crossing a point of no return. Aaron nearly discovered it one evening, and I managed to hide it just in time, my heart pounding in my chest. The fear of getting caught was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. Each step I took away from Aaron and towards Marcos was laced with deception and betrayal. I was losing myself in the thrill of the affair, blinded by desire and the intoxication of being wanted in a way I hadn't felt in years. But with each lie, each secret rendezvous, the foundation of my marriage crumbled a little more, setting me on a path towards an inevitable, devastating collapse. The moment Marcos asked me to leave Aaron, my world stood still. Think about it, Jenna. We could have something real, he urged, his eyes searching mine for a hint of agreement. I hesitated, every fiber of my being screaming that this was the point of no return. I'll consider it, I finally whispered, a promise that felt more like a betrayal with each breath I took. As I lay awake that night, Aaron's steady breathing beside me, I allowed myself to fantasize about a life with Marcos. A life filled with passion, excitement, and the unknown. We'd travel, explore new places, and build a life together away from the shadows of deceit. The plan was like a vivid dream, so tempting yet fraught with guilt. The bubble burst when Marcos, driven by impatience or folly, showed up at my workplace unannounced. His presence, meant to be a grand gesture, turned into a spectacle. Word got around fast, and by the evening, Aaron confronted me with a look that chilled me to the bone. I heard about your visitor today. Jenna. What's going on? His voice was calm, but the hurt behind it was palpable. Faced with Aaron's ultimatum, my world crumbled. Come clean or it's over, he stated, leaving no room for excuses. The truth spilled out in a flood of tears and confessions. I told him about Marcos, the affair, and the indecision tearing me apart. I begged for his forgiveness, for a chance to make things right, but the damage was done. Aaron's departure was silent, a quiet storm leaving devastation in its wake. He needed time to think, he said, but the finality in his voice told me everything I needed to know. The absence of his presence in our home was a stark reminder of the cost of my choices. In the aftermath, my decision to be with Marcos felt like stepping into a void. Relief at no longer living a lie was tinged with fear of the unknown. I had chosen a path that promised happiness but was littered with the debris of a broken marriage and a shattered trust. As I moved forward, each step was heavy with the realization of what I had lost and what I hoped to gain. The world I thought I knew shattered in an instant. The twist came out of nowhere, leaving me gasping for air. Marcos, the man I had risked everything for, casually mentioned he was married and had no intention of leaving his wife. It's complicated, Jenna. You wouldn't understand, he said with a shrug, his words slicing through me like a knife. Betrayal burned through me as I confronted Marcos. How could you do this to me? I demanded, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. He looked at me, not with remorse, but with cold indifference. Life's complicated, Jenna. I thought you knew what this was. His dismissal of my feelings was a wake-up call, a bitter pill that I swallowed with tears streaming down my face. Desperate for a semblance of the life I had so recklessly thrown away, I tried to reach out to Aaron. But he had vanished from my world as if he had never been a part of it. His phone number was changed, and the home we shared now felt like a tomb, echoing with the ghosts of our past. Isolation crept in as friends chose sides, an invisible line drawn in the sand. Most sided with Aaron, their silent judgment a constant reminder of the wreckage I had caused. Loneliness became my only companion, its weight pressing down on me with every breath I took. I threw myself into work, seeking solace in the numbing routine of daily tasks. But solace remained elusive, a distant mirage in the desert of my reality. The encounter with Aaron, seeing him laugh and hold someone else, twisted the knife deeper into my heart. Jealousy and loss consumed me, a toxic cocktail that left me reeling. My performance at work began to suffer as depression wrapped its cold fingers around me. The vibrant, confident woman I once was faded into a shadow, a mere echo of her former self. Regret became my constant companion, whispering reminders of the happiness I had so carelessly destroyed. The realization of the full extent of my actions came crashing down on me like a tidal wave. The understanding that I had not only lost Aaron but had also lost myself in the process was a bitter truth I could no longer ignore. The cost of my choices was etched into the very fabric of my being, a price paid in full with a heart shattered beyond recognition. From the moment I stepped into the fallout of my own making, the consequences of my actions bore down on me with the weight of the world. My career, once a source of pride, became a battlefield. Whispers filled the halls, each murmur a pointed reminder of the scandal I had caused. Social invitations ceased, and colleagues who once greeted me with warm smiles now offered nothing but cold shoulders. The professional world I had built on years of hard work crumbled beneath the stigma of my personal failures. In this new, lonelier existence, I sought solace in the small things. A book read without interruption, a solitary walk in the park, a cup of coffee savored in silence. These moments, insignificant as they might seem, became my lifelines, tiny beacons of light in the overwhelming darkness. I was learning to accept this altered state of being, finding a semblance of peace in the simplicity of solitude. The unexpected news of Marcos's downfall reached me through the grapevine, a twisted sword of poetic justice. His wife had left him, taking their children and the remnants of their life together, leaving him to stew in the aftermath of his own deceit. I couldn't help but wonder if he felt the same gnawing emptiness that had become my constant companion. Reflection became a daily ritual, a time to confront the hurt I had caused and the karma I now faced. The realization that I was not the victim but the architect of my own misery was a bitter pill to swallow. With each passing day, I came to understand the depth of the pain I had inflicted, not just on Aaron, but on everyone caught in the crossfire of my selfishness. In the midst of my introspection, life offered a glimmer of hope in the form of someone new. He was kind, understanding, and, most importantly, unaware of the chaos that had been my life. Yet, the scars of my past held me back, fear anchoring me to the spot, unable to move forward. The thought of risking someone else's heart was a risk too great to take, leaving me trapped in a cycle of loneliness and regret. Therapy became my sanctuary, a place to unravel the tangled web of emotions and actions that had led me to this point. Through sessions filled with tears and revelations, I began to understand the motivations behind my choices and the steps needed to heal. It was a slow, often painful process, but with each breakthrough, I felt a piece of my burden lift, giving way to a cautious optimism. Small improvements in my mental health emerged like the first rays of dawn after a long night. Laughter no longer felt foreign, and hope, a concept I had once abandoned, started to take root. Yet, progress is not a straight line, a lesson I learned the hard way when I ran into Marcos. His attempt to rekindle what we had, a desperate bid to cling to the past, served as a stark reminder of how far I had come, and how easily it could all unravel. Facing Marcos again, I found the strength I didn't know I had. Rejecting his advances, I realized that the journey I was on was mine alone, a path towards redemption and self-forgiveness that no one else could walk for me. The setback, instead of breaking me, fortified my resolve. I was not the woman I had been, and though the road ahead was uncertain, I was finally ready to face it head-on, one small step at a time. The moment I turned Marcos away, something inside me clicked. It was as if I was seeing the world for the first time in color, realizing I didn't need him or his false promises to define my worth. That rejection wasn't just about him. It was a declaration of my independence, a step towards reclaiming the life I had so carelessly set on fire. In the wake of that decision, I turned inward, focusing on personal growth with a fervor I hadn't known I possessed. I was determined to learn from my past mistakes, to emerge from the ashes of my broken marriage a wiser, stronger person. This wasn't about redemption in the eyes of others but about proving to myself that I could rise above the chaos I had created. New interests became my solace and my salvation. I threw myself into painting, the strokes of my brush a tangible expression of the tumultuous emotions raging within me. Yoga offered me a sense of peace and grounding, each pose a step towards finding balance in the chaos. These weren't just hobbies, they were lifelines, pulling me back from the brink of despair. There were moments of weakness, of course. Late at night, the loneliness would become unbearable, and my thoughts would drift to Aaron. What if I reached out? Could there be a chance for reconciliation? But as dawn broke, clarity would return. That chapter of my life was closed, not out of spite or regret, but out of a newfound respect for the both of us. We deserved to move on, to find happiness apart from the wreckage of our past. Acknowledging my role in the destruction of our marriage was a bitter pill to swallow. It was easier to play the victim, to blame outside forces for the choices I had made. But true growth meant facing the uncomfortable truths, owning up to my mistakes, and learning to live with them. It was a painful process, fraught with moments of self-doubt and regret, but it was necessary. Forgiveness, especially forgiving oneself, is a journey with no roadmap. It wasn't a moment of epiphany but a gradual acceptance that, despite the hurt I had caused, I was still deserving of love and happiness. This realization didn't erase the past, but it allowed me to view it through a lens of compassion and understanding, both for myself and for those I had hurt. In the midst of this tumultuous journey, I met someone new. Not a romantic interest, but a friend, someone who saw me not for my failures but for the person I was striving to become. This friendship was a tentative step towards rebuilding my social circle, a reminder that connection and belonging were still possible, even after everything that had happened. Each of these actions, from the rejection of Marcos to the forging of new friendships, was a step on the path to recovery. It was a path littered with obstacles and setbacks, but also one that offered glimpses of hope and moments of clarity. As I navigated this terrain, I did so with a newfound resilience, a deep-seated belief that, no matter how far I had fallen, it was always possible to stand up, dust myself off, and begin the journey towards healing and redemption. The world as I knew it had crumbled, but from its ashes, I began to see the glimmers of a new life, a new perspective that was both terrifying and liberating. It was as if I had been looking through a kaleidoscope, the patterns of my existence constantly shifting, never quite settling. But now, the pieces were starting to form a picture I could understand, one where the sharp edges of my past mistakes didn't cut as deeply. With this newfound clarity came a wave of gratitude. It might seem strange, feeling thankful for a journey marked by betrayal and loss, but it had taught me lessons I couldn't have learned any other way. I was grateful for the pain, for it had forced me to grow, to evolve beyond the person I once was. It was a hard-won wisdom, one that came at a great cost but was invaluable nonetheless. Emboldened by this sense of appreciation for my tumultuous journey, I reached out to old friends, hoping to mend bridges I had thought irrevocably burned. The receptions were mixed. Some doors remained closed, the hurt too deep to forgive, while others opened tentatively, the bonds of past friendships cautiously explored once more. It was a humbling experience, a reminder that not all wounds heal with time, but some connections, however frayed, can still be salvaged. In the quiet moments, I found stability, a sense of calm that had eluded me for so long. My life, once defined by the chaos of my choices, had settled into a rhythm that was soothing in its predictability. I cherished this peace, understanding now that the storm had been necessary to appreciate the stillness. Yet, with stability came the full realization of what I had lost. It was a clarity that brought with it a profound sense of sorrow for the life I could have had, for the love I had squandered. Some things, once broken, can't be mended, and the acceptance of that truth was a bitter pill to swallow. It was a loss that was deeply felt, a void that no amount of self-improvement or new perspectives could fill. The final confrontation with Aaron was a moment suspended in time, a culmination of all the steps I had taken on this journey of self-discovery. His words, cold yet not unkind, were a stark reflection of the irreversible damage my actions had caused. "I'm happier without you," he said simply, and in his eyes, I saw the truth of it. It was the closure I had long sought, yet it offered no solace, only the stark realization of my complete downfall. As I watched Aaron walk away, a chapter of my life closed forever, I was left to reflect on the irreversible damage of my choices. There was no redemption to be found, no turning back the clock on the pain caused. My journey had come full circle, leaving me to navigate the remnants of a life forever altered by my actions. It was a sobering acknowledgement of the cost of betrayal, a lesson learned in the hardest way.